In this video, we'll take a look at some of the results from the 2016 Technology Levy Planning Survey that went to all North Shore staff. This valuable information is used to inform new projects and new professional development for teachers and other staff across the district as part of our Technology Levy and Bond. In this first set of slides, we'll take a look at the participation rates by school and by grade level, and also look at the demographics, particularly of the teaching population that responded to the survey. This slide shows demographic information about the responses to the survey. This year we had a total of 615 responses, the vast majority of whom were teachers, although we did have representation from administrators, teacher librarians, and other classified staff. The circle chart on the left shows a breakdown of the responses by school, and you can see that some schools had higher proportion of responses than others. Here are the demographic breakdowns for elementary respondents. Again, the vast majority of our respondents from elementary were teachers, followed then by SLPs, OTPs, and psychs, and other classified folks, as well as teacher librarians. You can see that across the district we had higher response rates from some elementaries than from others. Still looking at elementary respondents, you can see here a breakdown of the teaching classifications or teaching assignments for those that reported that they were teachers at the elementary level. A good majority of these folks were grades 3 through 6, followed then by grades pre-K through 2, and then a smattering of folks who teach specific content areas at those schools where at the intermediate grades teachers might rotate, where one teacher teaches all kids at that grade level math, for example. Here are the participation rates by school for secondary folks. Again, consistently we see that teachers were the majority of the respondents, and classified folks, administrators, etc. were also participants. Just like with elementary, we had higher participation rates at certain schools than at others. We would expect that high school response rates would be high, or a higher proportion of all secondary. However, there were some junior highs that were higher than others in terms of their response rate. Here are the demographic breakdowns for folks that indicated that they have a teaching assignment at the secondary level. For this question, we broke the responses down by content area. So you can see English language arts, social studies, science, and math being among the highest proportions, and that makes sense given that those are core content areas, followed closely by special ed and CTE and fine and performing arts. In the first series of questions we asked after demographics, we asked respondents to tell us something about the impact that current levy projects have had on teaching and learning, as well as their opinions on whether or not those projects should be eliminated, maintained at their current rates, or expanded in the next bond and levy cycle. The 2014-2018 Technology Levy included a series of instructional-based projects, some of which are listed on the right. These are the projects that we asked staff to comment on in the Technology Levy Planning Survey. They include professional development for staff, instructional computing, which is the project that provides staff and students with computing devices of all kinds, Mac, PC, Chromebook, and iPad. The Active Classroom project, which provided interactive whiteboards for each instructional space in the district. Instructional presentation systems, which provides projectors and/or LCD flat panels and document cameras for instructional spaces. Classroom audio, which provides a system in each instructional space to amplify the teacher's voice and any media coming from a device of some sort. Printer replacements. And then Bring Your Own Device at the secondary level, which is a project that afforded students the ability to bring a personal device from home and attach it to the North Shore School District wireless network. For each of these instructional projects in the 2014 levy cycle, we asked survey participants to rate the impact on teaching and learning that each of those projects seem to have had in their own classroom environment. This slide shows three different displays of the data from the survey. The larger graph on the left side of the screen shows the results for all respondents, where the smaller graphs on the right show a breakdown for just elementary participants and just secondary participants. Looking at the all respondents chart, the purple regions represent the percent of respondents who felt that that project had a high impact on teaching and learning. The blue sections show moderate impact on teaching and learning, and the green sections show the respondents that felt there was a low impact on teaching and learning. The gray areas show the percent of respondents who felt that they didn't have enough data to make a judgment about the impact on teaching and learning for that particular project. Looking specifically at the elementary and secondary breakdowns of the results on these particular questions, you can see that the overall trend, the overall pattern remains the same, where instructional computing and instructional presentation systems have consistently high impact according to staff perception. BYOD tends to have a lower region of purple and some of the other areas partially because it's just been implemented, it's a new project, and partially because it's only been implemented at the secondary level. One other observation to make here is the widespread difference in opinions about the effectiveness of professional development. Keep in mind that professional development comes in all shapes and sizes, and so folks' perception of the professional development that they've participated in might vary widely depending on things like grade level or how it was delivered or where it was delivered or how long it was or what the particular topic was, whether or not it was required or independent study. There are definitely pieces of the professional development project that would make these results vary widely. Next, we asked survey recipients, based on the same list of instructional projects, whether they would vote to expand the project for the 2018-22 levy cycle, maintain the project, or eliminate the project entirely. And again, we gave them the option of indicating that maybe they didn't have enough data to answer as well. So here you see on this slide the combined results on the left for these particular questions, as well as the breakdowns for elementary and secondary. Looking at the results for all respondents, here the dark blue indicates a willingness to expand the project in the next levy cycle. The medium blue is a vote to maintain the project at its current levels, don't change anything. And the lighter blue would be a vote to eliminate the project in the next levy cycle. And gray again means that the respondent isn't sure or doesn't have enough data to answer the question. Looking at the breakdowns for elementary and secondary, a few things pop out. One is there seems to be a slightly increased level of support for more instructional computing devices from our secondary folks. That said, the trends remain fairly consistent from level to level, where elementary folks do seem to show some support for increased number of devices, but maybe not quite as much as for secondary. Another thing to note here would be that support for BYOD is quite different between these two graphs, and that makes a lot of sense because we've only just implemented BYOD at the secondary level. We are just this year in 2016-17 exploring pilots of BYOD at the elementary level to add to the one that we started a couple years ago at Maywood Hills. This next series of slides shows the results from questions where we asked participants to think about some potential projects that we could include in the 2018-22 levy cycle. These projects are either ideas that were held over from the last levy cycle that we couldn't fund, or ideas that have come about as some of the integrants and other things that we've done in the district have taken shape over the last few years. The first project presented was an expansion of Bring Your Own Device. This would bring wireless access for students to use their personal devices down into the elementary level. The purple on the left side of all three of these graphs indicates the percent of respondents that strongly support the idea of this project. The blue indicates moderate support, but that there might be other things more worthy of our funding. The green area is a full, I do not support the idea of this project, and the gray, again, represents the percent of respondents who didn't have enough data to answer the question or aren't sure what that project describes. It's interesting to note here the difference between the responses at elementary and secondary, where elementary folks tend toward the support end of the continuum to have BYOD at the elementary level, and our secondary friends seem to have a slightly higher level of distaste, I guess, for BYOD at the elementary level. This is definitely worth some discussion. We'll be conducting some additional surveys, interviews, questions, and data gathering to inform what we see here in this data. The next project we asked respondents about was additional computing resources. This would be increasing the number of resources available to students. It could potentially involve a one-to-one distribution where each student in some identified grade band receives an assigned computing device. Overwhelmingly, it appears that we have good support for additional computing resources. We'll be doing some more work with TAC and the instructional tech leadership groups to define what this might mean within our limitations on things like budget and levy collections and things like that. But it does appear that we have good support for an increased number of devices. The next project we asked about was the idea of implementing what we call a learning management system. If you're familiar with Moodle or Canvas or Blackboard from your work in either other districts or in our own district, we have Moodle, or in universities and higher ed, you'll know that a learning management system is basically a one-stop shop where we can pull together all of the different resources that a teacher might use in the context of their teaching, and we can share that one-stop shop with parents, with other teachers, with students. It would be a portal for students to be able to get to other systems that they might interact with, but it would be their first stop in any instructional setting. What we have heard from other districts who've implemented one-to-one or a high saturation of devices for students is that an LMS provides a common platform as students move from class to class and grade to grade. An LMS would provide a common platform for them to access materials and communicate with each other and with their teachers. The responses here are slightly mixed. We do see some strong support among a certain percentage of the respondents for this project and some moderate support. Very low level of response from folks that said they do not support the idea of the project, but unlike with some other projects, we have a higher percentage of folks that don't know what this is. So the Tech Advisory Committee, the Instructional Technology Leadership Committee, and other folks in instructional technology will be doing some work to kind of educate people on what this is in the coming months so that we can make an informed decision about whether or not to move forward with this project. The next project introduced in the survey was a project designed to support building-based instructional technology professional development. Essentially, this would be a group of resources devoted to providing school-based either one-on-one support between a couple of teachers. It might be collaborative planning time. It might be team teaching. It might be a training offered before or after school for pay. The resources would support the idea that school-based folks and instructional technology coordinators at the district level would come together at the school to provide timely and relevant instructional technology professional development. We can see here that the support for this idea is quite strong. We have good support both in the purple strongly support column and in the blue somewhat support column at all levels and in all areas. So this does seem to be a project that would have some merit moving forward. The next project we asked about included resources to increase our district level instructional technology staff. Right now, at the district level, we have 4 instructional technology coordinators whose job it is to work within pathways and grade bands to coordinate not just the implementation of instructional technology devices and equipment and systems and services, but also to work closely with teachers, as these folks are former teachers themselves. They've come directly out of the classroom to support the professional learning of staff across the district in a multitude of areas. So this project would increase the number of those coordinators to make sure that we had good reach and good support at all levels and for all of our schools. Overall support for this project seems to be high based on the responses. The responses here are not necessarily as high as the building-based professional development, which isn't that terribly surprising because we know that job-embedded professional development at the building level is not only the most effective, but the most compelling for folks as well. So possibly some work to do here, but this does seem like a project that is worth moving forward with. The last project we asked folks about was a project designed to modernize our instructional presentation systems. Right now, the vast majority of our instructional spaces have a projector, an interactive whiteboard, and a document camera. And what this project would do would be to fund the updating of that equipment, possibly to include in some or many instructional spaces an LED or LCD flat panel and an iPad for the teacher. What this does is expands a teacher's ability to move about the room as they're presenting information from the iPad, as well as give the teachers and students both access to a virtually infinite number of apps related to education and related to being able to visualize concepts for students. So a new system like this would present many more opportunities for teachers to expand what they do to support student learning from a visual standpoint. Support for this project seems fairly moderate. It does appear that there are some folks that feel like this would not be a good idea. That's probably likely because these are folks that have developed many materials related to the use of their interactive whiteboard. We currently have a project underway to pilot this new system, and we're collecting some great data about what it's like for a teacher to transition from an interactive whiteboard to this system. And we're also finding that there might be some instructional spaces where it makes more sense to have something interactive as opposed to a flat panel and an iPad. So more to come on this project. Definitely worth some discussion. This concludes a basic overview of the Technology Levy Planning Survey results from January 2017. In the future, you can expect to see some additional videos and information related to more of the survey results. The Technology Advisory Committee will be meeting twice a month between January and June of 2017 in an effort to finalize the big ideas and the projects that are going to be in our 2018-2022 levy cycle. If you have input or comments or would like to talk more about the planning of the levy, please contact me, Shelby Reynolds, at sreynolds@nsd.org or 425-408-7755.